Or if you say something that you realize after that you're like, I don't want that put out. Just say like,
we can edit it out. Yeah.
Sure.
So, all right, man. I don't know, Drew.
I meant to bring you a candle. I left it at home.
I want to.
I'll bring one sometime soon.
Okay.
Can I just compliment Drew real quick? Stop being a dick, dude. I like that bandana, dog.
thanks.
Spin it up. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Men's Mental Health Mildly Minding Its Own while merging mind modalities with mediocre melodies. Uncle Gary watched Silence of the Lambs one time, and now he thinks he's a criminal psychologist episode of the Days Grimm. My name is Brian Michael Day.
My name is Thomas Grimm.
What's up, Tom? Oh,
Not much.
who's producing the show?
Drew Head.
What's up, Drew?
Nothing much.
You guys doing okay today?
Yeah, not too bad.
I was just complimenting, or I tried to compliment him on his bandana several times, and you kept cutting me off.
Yeah, it's like a
Thomas wouldn't
compliment-free
shut the hell
zone.
up.
Dude, okay, I have real quick. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned this on this episode. I read an article on CNN the other day at work. Double supermoon. It's coming up, or it happened. I don't know. Yeah, we got it on screen here. This is really irritating for me for a couple of reasons. It's every week I hear of a new moon.
Yeah, normally happens once a month.
It's like a cycle.
Yeah, it is. A lunar cycle.
Oh, it's not. Oh, I thought you were making like a
menstrual joke.
Yeah,
No.
I thought he was going menstrual.
No, it
Can you
is-
pull up the second tab with the other moons? It got me wondering, how many different moons are there? I mean, Drew, how many moons are there, dude? Look at this. Scroll through this. There's like a whole list. There's like full harvest supermoon, the blue moon, the full sturgeon moon. What's going on here, dude? What's happening? What's going on?
I could not tell you, man.
There's so many different moons. There's a harvest moon.
Do you just-
blood moon?
Full beaver moon.
Full beaver moon.
I don't know about that.
We're going back to female anatomy. What's happening here? Okay, I don't know, dude. But anyways, it irritated the shit out of me because when I read that, I was like, "This is dumb. This is so dumb." We just had a special moon like 2 weeks ago. I don't know. Tom, can you do me a favor and hit him with that intro?
Joining us this week in the Days Grimm shoebox is Lori Riley. How are you?
I'm well.
Miss Riley.
Well, only for a few more weeks.
Few more weeks,
Right?
Yep.
And then it's going to be Mrs.
Olson.
Shout out to Pete, crushing it. You know. Are you excited you're getting hitched?
Yeah, very excited.
That's dude. I remember I got married to my wife like 2 years ago. I was terrified. I actually pooped myself.
Whoa.
2 weeks out from the wedding. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just woke up one day. I was like really jittery, and I was just thinking about it, finishing my vows, and I like a little bit,
Yep.
just came right out.
So, Lori, for our listeners, do you want to give them a brief synopsis of like an
Sorry.
elevator pitch of who you are and what you do?
I am LCSW, licensed clinical social worker. To be a licensed clinical social worker, you have to have a master's in social work. So I earned that degree at Southern Illinois University at Carbondale.
Yeah, I guess she's an Illonesian.
Yeah.
Salukis.
Yeah.
So you're a Saluki. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not too serious about it, but yeah.
You're not. Can I just say, like, I don't know a lot of SIU grads that are like, fucking Salukis. You know what I mean? Like,
The dogs are cute. I got to pet the dog. That's all I care about.
what is a Saluki?
It's a very sleek dog. I mean,
It's a breed, though?
It is a real breed.
Really? I did not know this. Did you know this?
I don't.
I don't think you spelt it right.
I
But, oh,
didn't.
yeah, you did.
Yeah,
know
Oh,
I
that's
did.
it.
no, you didn't. Saluki, if anyone's wondering. And we got it on screen here. That is and you guys had one of those on campus?
Yeah, we did. And they are always bringing in new puppies, to be the mascot. And
Aw.
they are shaped kind of greyhoundish with Afghan ears.
That is a strange but adorable looking dog.
If anyone's just listening, it looks like a rich lesbian aunt.
Yes, yeah, that checks out. Yeah, this is my Aunt Carol, but she likes to go by Dave.
She comes around on holidays.
So,
On
Lori,
her Harley.
You were my therapist for 3 years. You've also were my aunt's therapist, and I believe my mom's. But just like seeing that, like I guess this whole entire episode's just going to be on mental health and therapy.
I know you're getting into this right now, but I made a huge error. I have to read our sponsor.
Oh.
This episode is brought to you by Purple Moose Power Washing. That's Purple Moose, one word, Power Washing LLC. They're the newest pressure power washing company in the tri-state area. They do anything from siding to patios. Hit up our friends at Purple Moose. That's one word, Purple Moose Power Washing LLC for this summer's hottest deals. Links in the description. Hit them up. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're
I
all
almost
good.
made a huge mistake.
But I think we've touched on some mental health stuff in previous episodes, and then like now we got like a specialist in.
We do talk about it often. It comes up a lot because we're mentally unstable, or at least I know I am. I don't know about Drew.
Oh,
Are you okay?
that's a good blanket statement for us here at the Days Grimm.
Everyone in
We're
the-
mentally unstable.
Yeah, it's look at your face. We did an episode on like blind sports a couple months back, and we just laughed at the unfortunate for a while.
Yeah.
Trying to do athletic sports. Like it's unfortunate, but it was a good episode.
That's what he would do.
Are we mentally unstable or are we just bad people?
It's kind of a combination of both, I think. But we're going to lean on the mentally unstable side today. How did
So what piqued your interest in mental health?
how'd you get into that?
I can't remember a time when that wasn't really what I wanted to do. And life choices got in the way of me doing it. I got married when I was 18, 6 months out of high school, and decided having a child immediately was the right route to take.
Which is what most people think, right? When they get out of high school, they're like, I want a family.
Yeah.
Especially if you didn't have a good family life growing up. And
Yep.
you get out of high school, you're like, I want to try this.
Yeah, that's a bold strategy for an 18-year-old.
Yes.
19-year-old.
So we had a baby a year later, and
And you're 20-ish or 19 still?
I was 18 when I got married and 19 when the baby was born.
It's a young age. So then
It was intentional.
and then you got to go right into the workforce to make ends meet.
Yep, had to work, was going to college when I first got married, but it wasn't for what I wanted, and I just hated it so much I couldn't keep going. And
What was that you were going to school for?
um,
You don't mind me asking.
I wanted to be, or I thought I wanted to work in a law office, so I was taking classes to do that, and I just couldn't do all the numbers.
I don't
and all
even
that
know
stuff.
how law people can do it because it's like, what next year do you got to get the new book that has like the 15 new laws and you got to know those or
Mhm.
Speaking of laws, by the way, now it's law in Indiana that when there's a car on the shoulder, I read this the other day.
you're supposed to get in the other lane.
Yeah, now you have to get in the other lane. If
Common
you-
decency.
Well, now it's a law and you can get ticketed. And if you can't merge into the other lane to get away from said car, they say you're supposed to slow down 10 miles under the posted speed limit or 20 miles. Like there's a limit. You're supposed to go to slow down to pass the...
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a law now. Indiana State Police, I saw it on their Twitter. Crazy.
They're X.
But yeah, that's what he was talking about. Like shit's always changing.
It is.
With the law. It's like that would be so cumbersome to have to deal with as an occupation.
So, how long did that time go by before you were like, I want to get back into what I want to do with like mental health? Or what
Well,
did you figure out?
I went through a lot of jobs. I waitressed. I hate restaurant work. We've had a few restaurants in my family, and I always ended up working there, and I don't want to do that again. And I also worked at Little Fuse in Centralia, Illinois, a fuse factory for 10 years,
Okay.
being the primary supporter of our little family, and tried multiple times throughout my marriage to go back to college. Would go out, fill out the paperwork. The paperwork would come back. He got the mail before I did, and he would my then husband would throw the papers away.
Wow.
When we first got married, he presented as supportive of the classes I was taking at that time, but when I wanted to later, he had become so abusive and controlling that he just wasn't allowing me to do anything. My life was a little square.
So you think from that is where you were like, I want to help other people with
Yes.
trauma that are stuck in similar situations?
Yep. I had a lot of childhood trauma, and then I'm certain that had a huge impact on my poor relationship choice to get into a relationship with a very abusive, controlling person again. And when I was 33 or 34, I just left and took my kid and left. And a week later, it was about this time of year, I went out and signed up for classes.
Hell yeah.
And I started going to college immediately.
And you grinded all the way up to a master's while supporting your family.
Yep. I
crushed it.
It took 7 years because I had to. It was, I was raising my kiddo.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to work full time and get my associate's degree part time because I wanted to be with him as much as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it was time to get my bachelor's, I had to quit my job because I had to drive 75 miles each way to and from school to go to college because we lived out in the country. It's actually a village, Kell, Kell, Illinois, and there's nothing there. You have to drive 20 miles to get a gallon of milk or gas or anything. And I didn't want to turn my son's life upside down to go along with my other poor choices by making him move to Carbondale.
Right.
Away from his school and friends. So my mom would come and help me out, stay with him and cooking food and stuff. And I would just drive back and forth. So I got my bachelor's in 2 years, and then they came to me. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to get my master's, but I learned while I was in college that you have to have that to be a therapist, which was my ultimate goal and plan. And I did. I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I did well. I made good grades, and they came to me and said they wanted me to do the 1 year accelerated master's program.
Jeez, yeah, that's aggressive.
Yeah, there was just a handful of people that got offered that.
Yeah.
And with the age that I was, I thought, yep, that's my best bet. Get done and get back to work.
Yeah, because you're 34 at this time, right?
Yeah.
35,
Well,
34,
I was
35.
30. What was I? Maybe 38 when I started the master's program.
Oh, damn. Yeah, it's time to chop. Let's wrap
I
it
have
up.
to get done. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
100%.
then what was like when you graduate, do you get a job immediately in this field?
Nope. It took me 8 months and lots of applying to get a job in the field that I wanted to. It's just.
So when you start with like a social working degree, do you start off with like kids right away, or do you get to pick where you want to, like what age group you want to hit, or do you work with all ages?
Well, I was never that great with the really small kids, and I didn't take classes geared toward them. And so my first job was at Community Mental Health in Centralia, Illinois. And they want to tell you have some say. And I told them, I didn't take have no training in this. I'm afraid of little bitty kids. I don't know what they want.
As am I. Yeah, they're terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what they ever want. They cry. You don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
So they didn't make me see anybody under, I think, about 13.
So off the wall question, ADHD kicking in full blast right now. You've worked both in Illinois and Indiana. Do you see like a big difference in like Indiana maybe has a bit more like bipolar or whatever, and then like Illinois is like more depression, or like do you see a difference in the people, or is it just broad?
Nope. I think it's pretty much the same. The thing that was different is that the drug situation here is a lot more aggressive.
Bigger cities in this area. Yeah.
Yeah. Not that we didn't have that. It's just that it was such a rural area. I think
Mostly meth, probably.
Yeah. I think that made a difference. So I did learn more. Like I had never heard of Lortabs until I moved here.
Oh, yeah. And you're just dipping the toes in. Now it's heroin.
Yep.
Heroin is lethal in Evansville.
Yes. And my first job when I came here was at Brentwood Springs.
Shout out.
I went there.
I was at Brentwood. It was Brentwood Meadows then.
She helped send me there. And I
Yeah,
appreciate
she sent
it.
me there.
I was going to say, should I say sorry or you're welcome?
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. He stabbed a guy. No. You didn't.
No.
What happened? You had a cool story from Brentwood. I thought you had a neat story about like, were you playing board games or something? Or
No, there was
You don't
some,
have a
there
cool
was some, there was like, you, like,
I don't know why I said you stabbed a guy.
when
you
you
didn't stab a guy.
like, as a person, you really only, a lot of people only pay attention to themselves. And I think at that point in time, it was only me and not necessarily looking at other people or anything
Yeah.
along those lines.
Yeah.
And then so when you get to a point, you're like, I want to end it all or whatever, you know, where this is too much. I can't take it anymore, you know. And then you get thrown in a situation or a place like Brentwood or whatever, and then you see all these people that have it way worse than you.
Mm-hmm.
Or like they're, you know, like you're like, oh, I've got this mental issue going on. And then you see somebody that's got like schizophrenia and they're freaking out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're like, thank God that's not me. Or,
Mhm.
you know.
I mean, sorry, bro, but also, thanks.
Yeah, but I mean, you go in and you like, but it was also crazy because like I remember going in the first day and the guy in my room was a heroin addict and like he got out that day and then I was leaving 6 days later and he was coming right back in.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
That's how it is.
It's
Frequent
crazy.
flyers.
Yeah.
Turnover rate is.
Or you see homeless people that don't want to be homeless and they like take a whole bottle of ibuprofen and then end up in Brentwood for a week and then they're back to being
Jesus.
homeless. It's crazy.
Especially during the cold months. That's,
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of that out
I
there.
don't understand the whole bottle of ibuprofen. I've heard that before. And then also, like, okay, we talk about anything on the show, but like just suicide real quick. Just a quick note. Like if I was ever going to commit suicide, I would definitely do it. Like I would do it. You know what I mean? My wife is a nurse, so she works in ICU and she sees all kinds of crazy shit all the time.
Mm-hmm.
She can't tell me names and like specifics, but she's like, and I can't either, obviously, for FERPA and HIPAA. But what I can say is multiple times people have come into the hospital with like the craziest overdoses you've ever heard of, trying to kill themselves.
Mhm.
NyQuil, ibuprofen, acetaminophen, insulin. And it's like all these people.
But some of these people can't afford something that would be more efficient.
Yeah,
So
that's
a bottle
what
of
they
ibuprofen's like $3 or something like that. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So it's
Let's not say you, because let's not talk about the list. But let's say, like, if I was going to do it, I'm going to fucking do it.
but also to
you know
the
what I mean?
listener-
Like, I'm just going to do it.
But
Like,
to the listener,
I
this is another important thing
Yeah.
of like, hey, if you're feeling that way, like seek help.
Get the
Reach
help.
out to
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
like Lori
Absolutely.
or anybody in that field or whatever. And that's another thing too, is that like a lot of people are afraid of therapy or they got this stigma about therapy where it's like, oh, I don't need that, or oh, I experienced it when I was because I went to therapy when I was a very little kid. You know what I mean? I don't have many memories of it, if any.
Yeah.
But like therapy as a kid versus therapy as an adult, game changing.
I probably should have.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and like, well, not only that, but like, you get frustrated very easily, and I used to get extremely frustrated and overwhelmed. But like, meeting with Lori for 3 years, I learned what would you say on the phone last night? Emotional.
Regulation.
Yeah, emotional regulation. I made a note of that. We're going to talk about that today.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But before we get too far, what were we going to say, Drew?
Hey guys, we would like to take a moment to remind you that Bert Kreischer is coming to Evansville on September 20th, and we are going to do our best to set up an interview with him that weekend. We are also giving away a TDG merch bundle to an individual whose name will be drawn at random during a live TDG stream. The date for that is to be determined. The way you can enter to win the TDG merch bundle is by commenting on Bert's Instagram posts and tagging at the Days Grimm podcast. Each post that you comment on is an entry to win. Therapy as a child versus as an adult is a lot of the time when you're a child, it's not your choice. to go to
Yeah, it's
therapy.
forced.
Like your parents want you to go.
Yeah, I was getting
And
in a lot of
at
fights.
least speaking from personal experience, when I had to go to therapy and my parents were making me go, I hated it and I didn't get anything from it. But
could
if
see
I
that.
were to go now and talk about what I want to talk about, and
Drew, do you need to go to therapy now?
probably,
Would you like my number?
yeah, after the show.
We're going to exchange information across the board here in this room. Do you like catfish?
Yes.
Wait, yeah. Do you like catfish?
Sometimes.
Do you like catfish, Drew?
I'm not a huge fan of fish.
Let's go ahead and spin up this week's Death of the Week.
The death of the week.
This week's Death of the Week brought to you by Thedaysgrimm.com. Dip the tip in, get some merch. There is some. There's a really cool T-shirt in there that you can get. There's some really, really decent mugs that you see here in the studio that you can get. Very high quality. Some canteens, some trucker hats. There's a beanie. There's a few really, really cool things in there. So get in there.
Maybe soon these thermoses by Old Timers Engraving.
Shout out to Old Timers Engraving. They're crushing it as well. So you get in there. That is thedaysgrimm.com. That's 2 M's, thedaysgrimm.com. This week's Death of the Week, death by catfish, folks. Not a good way to put it. Just this is what happens. Catfish wound leads to death of Virginia fisherman. This is one of those stories that has to put every fisherman on edge. Fishing for catfish is not typically life-threatening, except in the case of a rare and deadly river bacteria that has led to the death of a Virginia fisherman. A spokesperson for the Virginia Department of Health confirmed to Reuters, that is, I don't know who that is, I think that's our source here, that the 75-year-old fisherman became infected with the Vibrio vulnificus virus, essentially a flesh-eating bacteria, after getting stabbed in the leg by a catfish barb. The virus apparently entered his bloodstream through the water. So if you're not familiar, if you're only listening to the show, catfish have these huge barbs that stick off of their snout. We have it on screen. There were 17 infections reported in Virginia this year, with 5 occurring from wounds. The bacteria is said to occur in brackish or salt water due to pollution and flourishes in warm weather. The CDC reports there are an estimated 95 cases per year in the U.S. To avoid an infection, do not swim in the water if you have a wound or a cut. Holy smokes. Real quick, before we dive into this, I was in Florida a while back with my wife on our honeymoon, and I was swimming way, way out in the ocean on this old rickety dock, and it was way out there, 100 feet or 200 feet, way, way, way out. So I swim way, way out there, and I start climbing up this, dilapidated dock that used to exist, and I was going to have her take a picture of me way out in the ocean, and as I'm climbing this post, like barefooted, and like I just got a pair of goggles on, I'm like climbing up this post to get on the dock and slice my foot open, right? Not a big deal because I'm not a sissy, just so we're clear. So I'm like bleeding from my foot profusely, mind you. And then I have her take a picture. I'm like standing there. Then I hop back in the water and swim all the way back to the beach. And then a lady was talking to my wife the whole time. And then I come up and meet this lady, and she was like, "Oh God, your foot's bleeding." And I was like, "Yeah, it's fine. This sand will stop it." She was like, No. Like, you need to stay out of the water because in this area, there's a certain bacteria that once it gets in you, and I wonder if it's not the same thing, but she said, yeah, you don't need to swim. Apparently in that city, I wish I could remember where we were, like 6 people last year died of this bacteria.
Yeah, a lot of people swim without like looking up water tests.
Yeah, that's why our triathlon got canceled.
Yeah. And a lot of people's dogs are dying this summer because they're letting their dogs swim in lakes and ponds that have that same bacteria.
Yeah, and they have open wounds or whatever. It's just,
or they get the water in their mouth.
It's crazy. Yeah. Did you know much about this? Have you ever heard of like these bacteria in the waters that can get in your cuts and stuff?
I just saw an article a couple of days ago about a lady taking her little dog out there, and that he got sick and swallowed a bunch of the water in the sand and almost died from it. So I wasn't aware of it. I didn't think about it until then. But where I'm from, when we would accidentally catch a catfish, you just hold that out and cut your line and let it go. You don't get around those barbs.
Oh yeah, they're brutal. We used to do trout lines across, lakes and stuff, or across ponds.
I mean, I know people who will go catfishing and they'll straight up just stick their arm in a catfish hole and let the catfish bite their arm, basically.
I think that's a terrible idea.
So you're friends with river people?
I know some.
I mean,
I don't know if I say friends.
He's got a mullet on, cut off.
You are changing, and I don't like the person you're becoming, Drew.
I've been pretending to be a very different person this whole time.
We thought he was this like young, progressive, nice kid. He's like this fucking. He's actually like a 65-year-old like conservative man with a shotgun collection deep down in his soul.
Yeah.
Right.
God, dude.
I'd also like to point out that the name of the virus, Vibrio vulnificus, that's a straight up Harry Potter spell.
That's a gangster ass name. That's a gangster name. If I'm a bacteria, yeah, vulnificus
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, the second.
That's this week's Death of the Week, brought to you by thedaysgrimm.com. You know what to do. Yeah, so let's go ahead and delve into Lori. You
A
know,
little bit more. So, like when I guess where do we want to go on this? There's so many different.
what was it
routes.
like growing up in Illinois, as far as in reference to, like the mental health game, if you will? Like, was there a lot of that going on, or was it a lot of like, rub some dirt on it, sissy, quit being a quitter type of attitude?
At the time that we finally stopped moving around and settled there in Kell, Illinois,
Like when you were a kid, I mean.
sixth grade on,
Yeah.
we moved around a whole bunch until then, and then I lived in Illinois from sixth grade until I moved here
Mm-hmm.
7 years ago. And with that rural area, I did ask my mom to take me to therapy after some pretty significant trauma
Mm-hmm.
in my life. And there was only one therapist in the whole area. And somebody else in my family was going to see him. And that person said, I don't want you to go. So I didn't go until that other family member said, yeah, it's okay for you to go.
a lot of therapists don't deal with same members in the family as well, right? And there's like certain situations where like basically if you were my therapist and like my mom wanted to come to you, like you would almost have to ask, or like some sort of situation there.
Yeah, and I don't, a lot of the time I don't try to do it like at the same time. A lot of times I'll see a person and they want their partner to be, want me to be their therapist too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a no-go area.
What
We're going to have triangulation and they're going to end up hating me.
But you do
before it's
couples therapy sometimes. I remember there was
Yes,
a time
I
or
will
two
do
where
it.
I got to bring in my significant other for
How do you have any objections to counseling three anonymous individuals that just so happen to be a part of the same podcast? Are there any objections there?
No, not unless y'all want to talk about each other. Then that's a no-go area.
God damn it. I'm out.
Yeah, me too. All my trauma is related to Brian.
Dude. No, okay. So I want to play a little game real quick. And in my head, you said there was one therapist in when you were growing up in your town as a child that you wanted to go see. Eventually, you got permission to go see him. Now, in my head, we're just going to play a little game, and you just have to say true or false. In my head, when you go and finally meet this fella, I feel like you go and meet him like in the woods of Illinois, and you're like, hey, here's my issue. And this guy's got like a cheek full of beech nut, and he's got like a Labrador by his side, and then also like a deer head on the wall. And then you tell him your problems, and he's also like, rub some dirt on it, sissy. Get the fuck out of here. And then you have to write him a check for $1,000. Is that true or false?
That is mostly false.
Oh, shit.
He would chew and spit. He would chew and spit during
I
session,
knew it, dude. Dude, come on, bro. That was so close.
making it very hard for me to think about anything else.
So,
that beech nut.
but how many? So, like, I guess from the time you got into the mental health therapeutic world to now, there's so many different like ways to go about it. Like we talked about, like EMDR, and what are some of the other like newer therapy methods that you saw come up?
Modalities, by the way, is the
Modality.
proper term when you're talking about. I got them. Don't worry, I got it. Modalities.
Gotcha.
No, I'm joking. I'm just teasing. But yeah,
EMDR is definitely the most outlier that I have come across.
what do you mean by that? Like,
It's just here's a good story. When I was in college, we had to for one of our professors write a paper about a specific modality, talking about the origin of it, how it's changed, and how it's helpful and not, and all of that. And one of the other students in the class wrote about EMDR, and that's the first time I ever heard of it. and she got a failing grade because the professor said, this is smoke and mirrors. It's a bunch of crap. It's nonsense, and you're not going to bring that shit into our classroom.
And now look at it.
And
now it's like
I know,
one of the
and I was like,
main-
whoa.
Could you imagine if you took that to the therapist and like chewing that beech nut in Illinois? Be like,
Yes.
EMD who? Get out of here.
Yes.
Get out of here, son. And he loads a Mossberg 500.
Yeah.
He like points a shotgun at you.
That really scared me away from it, though.
Better get
So
out of
then after I moved here, that's when I got really interested in learning how to do it myself.
I am also sorry.
God bless you.
I am
Bless you.
also building a character for this one therapist in the middle of Illinois in my head. Like
Yes.
it's just going off the rails, and that's why I'm mentally unstable.
Also, for anyone who does not know who EMDR or know what EMDR is, it's eye movement desensitization and desensitization and reprocessing.
It's
Yes.
lights, flickering lights, and like it's aggressive. It's an ocular thing, right? Like they put this shit.
Not only ocular, it's a stand that's
It's
in front of
bilateral.
you.
It's a bilateral stimulation of the brain, is what it really comes down to.
But it is a lot of like flashing lights.
It
and
can
like,
be. I did not go that route. Sometimes people can have a really mild case of epilepsy and not even be fully aware of it.
Mhm.
And that flashing light bar, I always feared that might trigger something like that. And I didn't want to
Shit.
have anybody experience that in my care.
Yeah.
And when you are first learning to do EMDR, when you're in the classes,
Mhm.
they have you do this, and the client has to watch your arm going back and forth, which I found to be very distracting. If there's lights, there's a window, they look at my hand, my jewelry, if I have nail polish on, and you
A
don't
bird
just
flies by.
yeah, they get so distracted. And so they call these rounds.
Okay.
And you usually do this for like a 30 to 45 second period. And then you stop and ask them what they notice. And when you're 100% visual, they'll say, well, I noticed, how your hand looks or your ring or your nail polish or the sun out the window or anything else in the room. And also, I have had some blind clients, so that's definitely not an option available to them. And so you also have tapping, and you can sit like very close to the person and tap their knees like this or the back of their hands. And that works fine for some people, especially.
Is that just an option for the blind folks?
I think it's for anybody.
It's for anybody.
You're basically
okay.
stimulating both sides of the mind. And
One side of, yes, bilateral stimulation. That's the true key to it. But then too, almost everybody that I work with in some area of life have had trauma. They may be uncomfortable with someone sitting that close proximity
Oh yeah.
to being touched.
Yeah, don't touch my knees.
Well, yeah,
or
even somebody
anything.
ex-military like you, if I'm right on your knees, you're maybe back in that Humvee or whatever,
No, I just don't want you to fucking touch me. Get
A lo-
away from me,
a lot of-
creep.
A lot of people feel that
Not
way.
you. Sorry,
Right.
not you. But seriously, creep. Back it up. And again, I'm a beach nut guy, shotgun in his
Right.
lap. I'm like, dude, fucking get away.
Yep.
Get away from me.
Right.
Don't touch my
But you
knees.
also said
I
you have
don't
like
wanna make-
vibrating eggs that you
Yes.
can hold on to
Yep.
that rotate the pulse.
They sold those. They gave us the information at
Nice.
the class.
Yeah.
And I have control of this box, and the box controls the speed of this stimulation and also controls the intensity. Some
Tighten
people
up.
don't like it to go fast. It makes them feel nervous. And the great thing too about the buzzies that they call them is that you can lean back and be in a more relaxed position, close your eyes, far less distractions. And what I notice with doing it that way is that we don't have so many rounds initially where there's pure distraction.
And like, yeah, it's less of a, what would you call like an initiation period.
There's
of
also
like
that
Yes.
sensory deprivation
getting
of
used to.
Mhm.
But dude, the buzzies, that's what we were talking about over the phone
Yes,
the other
it
evening.
is.
Yeah. So you were going to bring those in, and
I just moved and I can't find any of my
dude,
things.
we're going to have
Nothing.
to do it. We're going to have you in a few months.
But we also spoke, so like before COVID, people got to come into the office and experience this, whereas now post COVID, well, during COVID, it kind of transitioned to a lot of therapies telehelp or online.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that it doesn't necessarily limit the therapy, but it also, like, there's certain modalities you can't do? over.
I think that's the most limiting thing about doing teletherapy. We were forced out of our office in 2020, and there are a lot of benefits to doing it this way. I'm able to provide therapy for people that don't live anywhere near here and can't find anybody close to them
Yeah.
that they're comfortable with, or if they live in a rural area, I can see anybody in the state this way. And I also have been able to see blind people that have no transportation or no one to bring them in. I've also been able to see people that are severely physically disabled and that are wheelchair bound, and that leaving the house for them is a tremendous ordeal and almost impossible. So that gave me a farther outreach in that way. But I have not felt comfortable trying to do EMDR in this environment. I've had a few people ask for it, and they're trying to teach us to do it, I just feel like that because EMDR cannot be measured like other things that I try to do with people, I can have more insight into how this is going to go. But when you do that bilateral stimulation of the brain, I've been in the office with people, and it's just they become distraught.
Can you do this bilateral stimulation EMDR thing, minus, let's say, so you can do it with hands and you can do it with the lights and stuff in front of their eyes.
Well, and she said motion of your hands.
Right. Can you do audible? Is there like an audible version of EMDR that is like music in your left ear and stop, music in your right ear and stop?
Kind of like a hearing test where you hear the beats.
Yeah, but different.
I am
but
really not sure.
The whole point would be like maybe the same song but over here, and then same song over here, but then a different song over here.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that would not be a similar sort of stimulation for the brain, like,
and I almost wonder,
right side and then left side and then right side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know if enough testing has been done on
That's
touch.
interesting. But then that brings me to my next point. Since we're talking modalities, I wanted to be sure to ask, like, what can music be therapeutic? And then if so, does that enter your world at all?
Oh, yes, it absolutely does, and I encourage people to use it.
How so? Like, I guess, like, how...
Well, I also, in that aspect, though, like, if you're bipolar like me, I don't listen to rock or metal music because it alters my mood.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I just cut that music out. Unless it's like The Strangers or somebody like that. You know what I mean? But it's not like my go-to regular, because it's like, we don't want Thomas pissed off and angry all day, every day for weeks on end.
So how does music enter your line of work, I guess? Like, how do you incorporate that?
When I was in the office, we played meditation usually with no words.
A lot of flutes.
Yeah, like, the underwater scenes, and seriously, I know.
A lot of mermaids.
It's surprisingly calming.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep, and I still play it. I can play it while I'm working now in the background.
Oh, yeah.
Some folks don't want it. Some folks do. Sometimes I need it. If I see 8 or 9 people in a day, I might start to feel a little bit high strung, and I need to use that to calm myself down.
That's another thing too, is like grounding. Like, how do you ground yourself after hearing all of you got 9 people in, and 9 people have terrible stories or instances. I mean, I know not every therapy session goes that deep, and some of them are just basic talking, but like, how do you let that, like, how do you not take that home with you? You know what I mean?
Well, one of the things that I learned early on as a therapist is that one of the things that helps you change from that work scenario to home is changing your clothes. When you are done, even though I work at home, after I'm done, I change my clothes. It's like walking out of one door and into another.
Get those demons off you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, get those demons off you.
Yep. And I
know who Ed and Lorraine Warren is?
I don't think so.
They're famous. Don't even let me make my point. Don't do that. I hate it when you do that. I have a really good point, and you're being an asshole about it. I hate working with this guy.
Those two need couples therapy.
I see.
I have a serious point, and he's over here giggling at me. Do you know who Ed and Lorraine Warren is, Drew?
No.
The Ghostbusters.
Shut up. Anyways, Ed and Lorraine Warren are notorious. Back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they were notorious, like...
Ghost hunters.
God, yeah, I guess. But they were demonologists, is what they refer to themselves as. And they would go to these terrible homes like Amityville, the real Amityville, and then some of these other famous stories you've heard about, and they would like assess the situation and try to remedy the situation. Well, Ed was just basically like a car salesman. If you look up a picture of him, he looks like a fucking car salesman. His wife, Lorraine, she was the one who could actually get in tune with the spirits or whatever, and she would talk to them and then have these experiences of like physically interacting with them. And then she has been on interviews. She's still alive, I believe. Yeah, see? Car salesman. Told you.
Mm-hmm.
But she is a very, very, very nice lady. But she would say, like, when I'm done with a home, like, part of it is with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then she would have to, like, reset before going and doing another job. Like, one job would put her down for, like, a month. If it was a real ghost
I can see
situation.
I wonder how
so
much...
it's really similar. You gotta just wash those demons off, dude.
Do you think, Brian, EMDR would be similar to the float tanks? With like, you never know what you're going to get while you're in there?
It's the opposite.
Really?
Do you know much about the desensitization or the sensory deprivation tanks?
I've had one person do that and tell me about it.
What did they tell you?
That it was
Positive or negative?
Far better and harder than they expected at the same time.
Yes. It's very, very neat. It's unlike anything I've ever done before. You really feel like you're like dead.
Mm-hmm.
We said it on air. It's the closest I think you could be to dead without being dead.
She suggested I try it, and I said, I don't know if that's. I don't know.
It feels amazing on your body.
Does it?
I remember I came out and they were like, "Don't get pulled over because you look fucked up."
I bet.
I remember that. Don't you remember?
She said she felt that way. She said she didn't know if she was going to be able to drive herself home.
I thought I heard a train in there and you can't hear anything, you know?
Yeah.
And Brian that said what'd you think?
Police sirens.
Yeah.
I heard police sirens because your body just like is so used to constant input that when you plug the ears and it's like you can't hear a snap. And
then you can hear your heartbeat and your breathing, but
there's no input. It's all internal. Like you hear your stomach moving, you hear your heart beating, but it's nothing external coming in. It's all internal, and that's all you hear. And then you close that hatch, and it's the blackest black you've ever seen.
You can't tell if your eyes are open or closed.
Sounds
You're in
like
there for an
Nightmare
hour
City.
and you
it's
forget
like
about it.
my eyes are open, but it looks like this. I'm like looking around. You can't see anything, and you don't feel anything because you're not touching anything. It's floating in this salt water. I mean, it's literally the water's body temperature. I mean, it's weird. It is weird.
Sounds like a panic attack.
It is weird.
Yeah.
If you're uncomfortable with tight spaces,
It's not that bad. I'm uncomfortable with tight spaces, and I did it 3 times.
I'm not uncomfortable with tight spaces, but literally only hearing your heart and your breathing and like your stomach.
You're
like,
dead. You're dead. And what happens is the point I was going to make is your body's so used to all this input all the time through the days and all the 24/7 when you're sleeping, whatever, that when you're putting yourself in that situation, your brain's like, panic. Let's just spark some input. So your brain is now like previous input now. And it's like, he heard a train horn. I've heard a million cop sirens. If you did it, you would probably hear somebody noodling in the river. I don't know, dude. But it's just like whatever your body's used to, your brain is used to, it just like plugs something in. And it's like, just play it because we're freaking out.
But also,
it's weird, dude.
Back on the therapy topic, though, I feel like some people, they try one therapist and they don't get along with the person. And they're just like, therapy wasn't for me.
Absolutely.
I'm done with that.
I hear that all the
like,
time.
You should maybe shop around a little bit.
You have to. I wanted to say one more thing right quick about the EMDR just for informational purposes.
Please.
When you are in your own home having therapy with a teletherapist like me, you have to do the bilateral stimulation to yourself.
Don't like that.
You have to tap your own legs.
No.
This is a frequent position where you do what they call the butterfly.
Okay.
And you tap here. So I can't help them with that. So I have to tell them when to start, when to stop. So
that's interesting that it's a modality that's used even through what do you call it?
Teletherapy.
Telehealth.
Teletherapy, yeah.
That's interesting. Also, speaking of like shopping around, and you've seen hundreds or thousands of clients at this point.
I would imagine.
So have you ever interviewed a serial killer? Or have you ever talked to somebody that's like killed somebody?
Oh, yes. I've had several people that were murderers in the past and...
Oh, but they're not like confessing to you.
Well, they've usually already been in trouble and gotten out of prison for it. Probably the most difficult one in that area was I had a client that had been in prison for around 30 years. And it was for her part that she played in murdering her baby. with the dad, and that was one of the hardest situations, and that was in community mental health where you can't say so much. I can't see this person.
Yeah. What about a serial situation? Have you ever done a serial killer? Like someone who's like born... You think people are born evil? Marilyn? No, not Marilyn Manson. Charles Manson.
I have had experiences with people that made me question and wonder with my beliefs about the soul and things like that.
Yeah.
How some people seem to be born conscious free. I had a really young man, actually it was my first suicide when I was in community mental health, my first job in Centralia, and the things that he would talk to me about were so hard to listen to, things that he seemed really pressed to say. As soon as he would get in my office, he would start sweating and shaking, and then he would tell me about doing things like microwaving kittens.
He did these things?
Yes.
Fuck me.
With the purpose of, and he would say, I don't understand why it made everyone so upset, because I was only trying to see what would happen. His brain had this ability that I think
detached.
Few people have, to think, well, it's clearly hurting the kitten, but it's like, to him, it's like an experiment. What's it going to do? Is it going to jump around? Is it going to cry?
Like significant indicators of the triad of psychopathy, like lack of empathy and hurting animals.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, dude, that
sounds terrifying.
It's a future serial killer.
It's very hard to hear people say things
I'm sure
like
it's
that.
very hard to be in a room with somebody talking about those things, especially, and you're like, I don't want to make this person upset.
To be like objective, a third party where you can't get upset and tell them what you think of what they're saying.
Yeah, you can't smash them over the head with a frying pan like most of us probably would.
It's very hard to be in that close of a small proximity. Our offices were so tiny that you were almost need to need with these people anyway.
You're inside. You're like in their person. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Have you ever, by the way, speaking of hitting people with a frying, have you ever hit somebody with a frying pan?
No.
Me neither. I've just been thinking about it.
I'd love to.
Me too.
So I've had people threaten to hit me, but I feel blessed that that's never happened to me, because far more social workers get injured and killed than most people think about.
Oh yeah, it's a hazardous line of work.
Very dangerous.
Seriously,
and the amount of burnout because of stuff like that is crazy.
Especially just social workers. Like if you're not a therapist, if you're
like
on the
CSW.
if you're on the CSW side, they're constantly in dicey situations.
Absolutely. Like
going in and getting kids out of like a meth dealer's house. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, you're about to catch a hot spoon to the forehead or something. Like,
it's dangerous.
The fuck out of it. I wouldn't. That's why I said hats off to the social workers community, because they don't make nearly enough money to do the heroic shit that they're doing. It's a situation I think needs to be solved.
Yeah, that, and they're like doubling the recommended caseload, and like they're just being burnt out within a couple years of starting their career.
For $50,000 a year or $45,000 a year. So it's like, dude, fucking pay these.
What do you think are some
money.
good outlets for people that are struggling? Like some things that you recommend right off the bat. You think
you have to not try to see too many people. You can't do it. And that's one of the huge benefits that I have now in private practice. Because when you're working for someone else, like Brentwood is a good example. Any new thing that needs to be added, that needs to be done, therapists can do it. But they don't give you that time in your day to do any of it. Same in community mental health. Any paperwork that has to be done, the therapist can do that. Well, when am I going to? I don't know. You're going to have to figure it out. And they would say to you when you had groups, don't take any time out of your schedule to plan for your group. How am I supposed to get ready? How am I supposed to have a plan, what we're going to work on? There's no thought about how you're managing anything. And then they'll say, take care of yourself. When? It's very hard to have an expectation to see more than 35 people a week. It's wildly unfair. You can't do it. Your brain is like, that's it, I'm done at some point.
That's insane. So you're seeing roughly 5 people a day, Monday through Friday. And then how long are some of these sessions?
They're all like an hour.
Sessions are an hour.
An hour.
53 minutes is supposed to be an hour, the session time. But I'm lucky if I always go over 53 minutes. So I just want to make all the use of the time I have with the person that I can.
How do you, what's, so like as telehelp, are you still working with a psychiatrist that kind of pre-diagnoses the person?
No. we don't have to do that anymore. But part of being an LCSW is having the ability to diagnose. So the very first time that I see anybody, that's what we do that first session. And I let everybody know the first session is going to be an assessment. And I'm just asking you questions about yourself. You don't have to be nervous because you know all the answers.
Yeah.
And I usually can get that diagnostic done in that first hour. If I can't, I finish at the second session.
So do you...
It was like 20 minutes and she was like, "You're bipolar, dude."
Yeah, you're crazy.
I
A cat
don't remember that.
in the
No, I'm
microwave?
just kidding.
Really? You're sick. Dude, so what do you do to... We talked a little bit about like washing the demons off, changing your clothes or whatever. But like, what do you do for your own mental health?
Well, sometimes I read. Sometimes it's hard to read because my brain is fatigued. But when I was really young, I crocheted. And last year I started doing that again. That is great.
Okay.
That helps me so much. It's kind of mindless. I get something that is just a repeat. So I just do the same things over and over.
Yeah.
And it's so enjoyable. And then I have this beautiful thing I can give it to someone for a gift or whatever.
That's interesting that you say that it's kind of monotonous. So like whenever I'm having a really, really bad day, I like to run.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty monotonous. Like short of the visual input you get while you're running, like all the trees, and I like to run outside, but all the trees and the whatever and this shit you see while you're on the road, but like it's really just like 1 foot, next foot, 1 foot, next foot. You know what I mean?
You have to think about anything.
Yeah, you don't. You turn your brain off, and it's weird. Is there like some science behind that, or do you know much about that? Like monotony to like calm
to just
or to reset?
To just give your brain a break from having to concentrate so hard. When you're seeing one client after another all day long, you are going to experience a lower level of burnout just from that. If I see 10 people a day, sometimes my partner comes home and I can't hardly have a conversation. The good thing is he understands. He understands that, and there's no pressure there. We also pray together. He prays with and for me, and that helps me. And I have to pray for myself because I am also a human. They teach you very much in college. You have to almost rid yourself of any of your own feelings or emotions or putting yourself first in any type of way. But as a person with a lot of significant trauma, some of the things that people say can put me back there too. And so I have to pray for myself during the sessions to get through it. We read the Bible on a regular basis. That helps me.
Do you have like a prayer routine? So like Muslims, they pray 5 times a day. Do you guys have like pray in the morning, pray at night, like a like ritual of it?
What, did you forget what it's like to be Christian?
No, I was just asking. Like
This guy.
like some Christians only
This guy.
Some Christians only pray before like every meal and then at night, or it's like
It's like you revert to Islam and for 2 months and you just forget what it's like to be Christian. Like, chill out, dude. What are you, stupid?
I get up in the morning quite a bit earlier than I have to start seeing clients. So it's quiet.
Yeah.
And I drink my coffee and I pray for myself and I talk to God about what I'm going to have to do today and to help me do it the best as I can.
Allah.
Yeah.
same.
Yeah. Tomato,
and
potato.
then when things are going rough during a session, I can still say, hey, God, you see what's happening here.
Yeah.
I don't really know what to do sometimes. I'm just a person. People are distraught sometimes, and I want to make sure I don't hurt them in any way.
Is that another hard thing to do with therapy? Is like keeping religion out of it almost?
I don't think that it is. I offer Bible-based therapy if that's what people want. If they don't want it, they don't, that's okay. But I can still pray for myself in my own head to make sure that I'm not saying something that could be harmful in any way. That's honestly a huge goal that I have. I don't want to hurt anyone or push them the wrong direction.
No, absolutely. And then they have their own personal beliefs and stuff too.
Absolutely.
Real quick, you sent us a link that we wanted to pull up today.
Sure.
Do you recall what that? Drew, could you yank that up for us real quick? What? And this is 9 keys to successful recovery from childhood trauma. Which you have.
think this goes towards any trauma, like Brian ex-military trauma, or do you think this article is like only for?
There were some bullet points, I think, down a little bit lower. There you go, right there. Some things that.
Zooming in a little bit, Drew, if you could. There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it looks like here we got forgetting that the past happened.
That is a more common thing that people try than anyone would ever think. I think we have this assumption, and I've talked with him about this, that once we turn 18 or whatever, and especially if the trauma happened in your home when you were growing up, you move out of there, and we think, well, that's over.
Yeah,
I'm not going to let that happen to me anymore, so I'm good. And we don't get handed, a bag of healthy coping skills on the way out.
No.
When you turn 18, you still got the same ones, and you're still using them. And the typical reason that people end up in therapy is because they suddenly realize all these coping skills I've been using are absolutely not working for me anymore. In fact, it's making it worse. We want to forget that happened. So
it almost becomes like monotonously ingrained in you. Those coping skills.
Absolutely, it does.
Like an autonomic.
You don't even realize you're doing it.
It's an autonomic response. Your brain is just like, well, this is happening. Turn it on.
Well, and that's where like
Automatic
Lori
thinking.
did wonders for me. Was like it was almost like a check and balance system of like Brian stepped on my toe, and that immediately would piss me off. You know what I mean? Or like, and I would be in a bad mood forever. But then it's like taking that second to be like, he stepped on my toe. Maybe he didn't mean to, or is it that deep for me to be mad at Brian the whole rest of the day?
It depends, man. You got some fresh Air Force Ones on?
If you had those cockroach killers on?
I'm fucking pissed. I'll tell you what, you drop one more goddamn mic cable on the floor while my wife is sleeping right under us, we're going to have some fucking problems, dude. Yeah. And I feel like I'm allowed to be mad. I get mad easy. I get mad very, very easy. It's very upsetting for me.
But basically learn
I used to too.
Yeah. I still do, and I'm okay with it. I like being angry.
Yeah, with that, forgetting that the past happened, especially with childhood trauma, a lot of my friends will talk about how they don't remember things happening before a certain point in their life because they have childhood trauma. Do you think that's kind of related to just blocking it out and trying to forget that happened?
Yes, we do that intentionally. Not with full awareness, but it is intentional. It was too hard. I have people come in sometimes just with the goal of wanting me to help them remember what happened. And that's not in my opinion, that's not the appropriate goal to have. Sometimes our brain is protecting us.
Yeah.
If you're better off not knowing that, don't try to do that.
If you remember it and then don't learn how to deal with it,
that's not going to be helpful.
Not gonna do anything.
We even talked about this a little bit on cam or on the phone call about how like I don't remember much of my childhood, if it, at all, any of it. And then like Brian, be like, yeah, when I was 4 years old, this happened, and I'm like,
that's how I am.
Can I tell you my early? Well, you brought up a fun point over the phone. Over the phone, he had mentioned, what's the earliest memory that you have? And I swear to you, I can put myself in my single wide trailer, crawling on the floor and being picked up by my Aunt Michelle with a cigarette in her mouth. Like I'm a baby, like I'm that young. All I remember is that I remember being picked up, and then she has a cigarette in her mouth, and I can almost remember what was on the TV at the time, but I don't know what the show is called. It's some kind of raisin thing, like these raisins are like cartoon characters, and they're on the TV. But I remember that from when I was I'm probably 2. I was probably 2.
The grapevine.
Yeah, I don't know. You what?
The raisins you heard it on the grapevine.
Is that what it is?
That's what the raisins were.
Yeah, they were like little cartoons.
Show.
Well, it might have been like puppets or something. They were like, I can't remember, but like I remember that. Like I remember
It's not
that.
uncommon for childhood memories to be like a slice, like a sliver. You don't remember like a full story, like what you're describing.
I don't remember.
You just
the
have
story.
this little section. You don't know what happened before or after.
For sure, got some secondhand smoke.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you used to be
Yeah.
able to smoke in McDonald's.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I'd
Yeah.
put her cigarette out on your soft spot.
Yeah, dude, it was fine. It was like a little ashtray. That's actually.
Hey, he really does have a spot on the back of his
I
head.
have a little dent in the back of my head. They just tap their cigarette in there. They're like, it's fine. It'll stay there for a while.
Perfect little dent.
Dude, I'm telling you, yeah. Trailer life was the best growing
What's the
up.
next bullet point here?
Oh, next bullet point is, well, there's several. Let's just run through a couple of them, and then we can kind of sum some of them up that are key points. But so, not having any feelings about the past or about your abusers when you think about them, forgiving your abusers because you're told and pressured to do so to recover, being, quote, one big happy family again, end quote, so that all can just, quote, move on. Your success is recovery. Your success in recovery is not dictated by whether or not you are in contact with your family. Dismissing or diminishing your lived experiences, living a, quote, normal life, and engaging with the world in the way you are told to do so. Never having the impulse to want to numb out or dissociate. Never feeling depressed, anxious, sad, or angry anymore, and instead of only feeling, quote, good and positive, and, quote, keep things light. So what are some of these that, like, really speak to you? Or, like, what are a couple of these key points that you would want to...
That one that starts with the diminishing and dismissing and diminishing your lived experiences and feelings to make other people comfortable in order to preserve relationships with them.
Yeah.
We are definitely taught that. That's one of the reasons I wasn't allowed to go to therapy when I asked. Because the person in my family that was going was involved in my sexual abuse.
Jeez.
And she was afraid I was going to tell on her. And I was. I mean, that's why I needed to go.
I'm dropping dimes, bitch.
Yes.
I'm dropping dimes.
And
all
so,
right?
you know,
I'm
but
joking.
it was.
I don't
it was,
trying to make light of a terrible situation. What do you know? So speaking of that, and we'll stay on that topic slightly, but like that's my defense mechanism is to laugh at things that are terrible. Does that make me a bad person?
No.
So like when I talk about
no one action like that can make anybody a bad person.
but is that a bad defense mechanism to have?
I don't think it's bad, but when I get somebody in my office and that's their go-to frequently,
That's me.
at some point I have to say,
It may not be the most.
Well, no, but you might
You
end
have
up
to
like
stop.
Robin Williams or
Yeah.
Tommy Boy. You know, like those guys were extremely funny, but they also
they were in
probably
a tremendous amount of pain.
right.
Yeah.
Or even like the bullet point we were talking about, like no longer experiencing anxiety, depression, happiness, and all that. It's just
next
good
one
or
down.
bad.
Yeah. Never
I feel like I was in that boat when I started seeing Lori. I was like, you know, I don't really see color, but I could see color, but it's like nothing is like exciting in that aspect. Yeah,
The
Nothing's
goal
pop.
becomes to be emotionally numb. It's it's a self-preservation, and that is what the dismissing also is. A self-preservation. Everything's fine. You know, I don't remember that
100%.
stuff. I forgive them. I'm not mad at them. That's what keeps the peace in the family. It's what's best for me. But then it's so painful that's what makes people, like I said, seek out help because they can't tolerate living that way anymore.
Do you like? Well, just use me for instance. Do you think you could see progression like through the therapy, like with myself and you?
Yes. And the time that I usually start seeing progression is when the client, and I don't want to.
Oh, you're free to
throw
talk
anything-
about whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can remember some stuff with you. It's hard to remember all the details, obviously, because of the time that's gone by and how many people I've seen since then. But when the client starts to feel so wildly uncomfortable that the whole time they're in session, they're holding their head in their hands, they're crying during session, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. That means we're getting past the numbing, we're getting things uncovered, and now we're going to be able to do something with
Yeah.
it.
Now we're looking at the problem.
But
Yes.
it took me months
It's very
to
painful.
get to that point.
It's very painful.
So I have a question about
Me?
no, not everything is about you.
Well-
listen, because you're a psychopath doesn't mean we're going to
No,
talk
but
about you
I
for
thought
an
we
hour.
could use. I know, but I thought we could bring up some stuff about like my therapy experience to maybe drive people
It's a good
to
example.
look into it.
We can, but I have one good vague question. It's not vague. The situation is vague. So often you'll hear about repressed memories.
Mm-hmm.
So what say you to an individual who maybe lives their life, and now they're an older man or woman, and they have this weird tic or something that they always do, and they can't figure out why they do it. It's not like an illness. It's not a disease. It's not a disorder. They just have like a tic, like a weird thing. Whatever. But, you know, let's say objectively we know as outsiders looking in that person was abused as a child sexually or something. But this person, if you ask them, they would say, no, I never was. Have you ran into that before where there's like telltale signs of like, oh, this is kind of putting off like kitty touching vibes. You know what I mean?
I absolutely have.
But when you confront them about it, they're like, no, I have no recollection of that. That never happened to me.
Yes,
what are some telltale signs, and then how did you treat that situation?
Interestingly enough, the last job that I had in Illinois before I came here was at a hospital, not a mental health hospital, but there was a mental health service provided for 55 and over only. And so I had a lot of people in their 70s or 80s. It was very common. And I had a couple of people in that situation there that really stand out of my mind. There was one lady, she was such a good person, so sweet and loving. And she had been sexually abused as a child. And she could come right up to it and almost get there. And then she'd be like, nope, that didn't happen. She just could not.
Like she didn't
say it.
Actually know that it happened, or
she danced around it enough that I know that she knew, but she had that door shut for almost her entire life. It happened when she was a teenager, and it would have caused such problems in her family that she could not. It was her sister's husband, her older sister's husband, and she could not do that to her sister. And so she had really taught herself that he went up to this far and then it stopped. But she had all of the symptoms.
Really? And what are some of the symptoms?
Abuse.
What are some telltale signs of like that?
Well, she very much feared men. Even at this age, she had a good husband. He protected her.
Yeah.
You know, she had a safe life. She was still afraid of riding the bus that we provided for transportation because of the other men that were on the bus. Yeah. It's a constrained space. Feeling, dirty about having sexual thoughts, even about her husband, who she'd been married to for 40 years. Things like that we wouldn't expect out of somebody that had never experienced such. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's
and she would talk about that brother-in-law, and like I said, she would get right up to it, and then she'd be like, "Nope,
No, we just had milk and cookies.
Yeah. Have you ever had...
No. No, you're good. Sorry.
Fuck you, Brian.
No, I'm joking. I didn't mean no to you. I mean, like, no, you didn't just have milk and cookies. You were R-worded.
She just couldn't go. And I've had other people get there, too. That's where oftentimes EMDR gets brought in, because that is the thing that kind of pushes people over the threshold.
Right.
But it can be very traumatic and and scary.
No, absolutely.
And that's, again, why I don't like to do it in this separated environment.
100%. And I didn't mean no to you. I mean, like, no. So what were you going to say? I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
That just kind of reminded me, have you ever had a situation where, like, someone was abused as a child and they are aware that it happened, they just think it happened to someone else, and they are like not.
Ooh,
they don't connect the dots.
Spicy.
That's
a good question.
It was
they like pass it off to someone else.
Yes, I have had that on one occasion for sure that I can remember, and it was sisters, and there was only like maybe a year and a half between them.
Oh.
And the female that I was seeing talked all the time about her sister being abused, which did happen. And seeing her be abused by their dad. But we saw each other for probably 2 or 3 years before she all of a sudden said, it wasn't just my sister. She never knew it before.
Yeah.
Wow. So Tom clearly wants to talk about himself. So I have a question about Tom. What was his biggest hang up? Like, what was hanging him up? Like you said, it took you months to get to where we could just get to the problem. During those months of him just being numb or whatever, what was the biggest hang up? What's causing him to just like stay numb and like not?
Are you okay with that?
Yeah. No,
okay.
You can answer any question.
Don't be such a baby, Tom.
No, I'm not.
I'm joking.
I'm protective of my clients. That's how it goes.
Yeah, no, I give you full disclosure, whatever rights.
So I'm going to say what I remember.
Yeah.
I'm going to say what I remember, and if I don't remember
Okay.
it right, you straighten me out.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
The thing that I remember the most about him when he came in is that he was so irritable that he was kind of like, I call it a porcupine. You can't stand for anyone to get close to you or you're going to throw a quill, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to hurt somebody back. Very, very low frustration tolerance. I feel like that you were angry, but you didn't really know where the direction of that was coming from. So it was just going out everywhere where it didn't belong. Driving. I can't remember what that job was that you come in and you had.
Were you working at the car dealership?
Stuff
Taking
all
No,
over.
I wasn't at the car dealership at the time. It was when I first started, I was driving municipal supplies all over the place, and then I switched to mobile painting and powder coating. And
That's
that
what it
process
was.
too.
And taking things that were happening with coworkers extremely personally. So we would spend a lot of time initially. Does that sound right to
Yeah,
you?
no, I
Trying
still
to sort those things out. Why is this like this? Why is this making me so angry? But that is one of the huge problems that we do when we have poor self-esteem, which almost everybody has. I've never met anybody that it was just right where it should be.
I think I'm awesome, just for the record. So
Yeah, Brian might be your first case.
I'm clearly not mentally. I'm not mentally unstable whatsoever. So look at me, you know, bald white male.
But no, I even find that aspect now too, still to where like you get frustrated with the coworker and you want to hold a grudge for a few days or whatever. But then
Yeah.
like you know, like you hear studies of like what upsets you in somebody else is like something that bothers you with yourself.
Absolutely.
And then it's like trying to figure out that line, or even, you know, something as simple as, oh, they just bumped into me or whatever. It's not, they didn't mean to, or
Well, don't stray away from the question now. My question was,
Not.
what was his biggest hang up during that like month?
Poor self-esteem and confidence leading to taking things personally, holding grudges, and having a baseline of anger, not knowing where that came from or what to do with it.
Like his threshold was too low for bullshit. Like he would just
When people have a
Fly off the
baseline of
handle.
anger and it's up here, let's say above a 5, because 5 is like that's the median.
oh shit.
Anytime we get above 5, we're not going to have good emotional regulation.
Uh-huh.
We're also going to be more likely to have altered brain chemistry. So when you're running at even a low level of having adrenaline flush, which you were having.
yeah, I mean, that's what led to me going to Brentwood. Was I was having adrenaline flush and I wasn't sleeping. I was up for like 2 days on no sort of amphetamine, like
I
no
was gonna say,
Adderall,
Nope.
no upper, none of that.
All the things that we were trying to were not helping you get to sleep.
Right.
I mean, I have a basket of things to offer to people to try. If none of that works, sometimes we have no choice but go to medication. You have to sleep.
Do you stay? Do you stay? Do you stray away from medication, and like as long as possible, or is it often that you find yourself like, okay, like I've made my diagnosis, I've done a couple sessions, like this person needs medication, or do you like fight that, or I don't know?
It partially depends on the client. Some people come to me that have already had therapy. They're already on medications. I talk to them about that. Do you feel like it's working for you? Some people are terrified, especially folks that have OCD and things like that, of taking medication. It's probably going to kill me as soon as I swallow it. And so I don't just say you have to take medication ever right off the bat. I'm not trying to scare people. If they want to try to work on things without it, I'll do it. But if it comes to a certain point where, we're not getting anywhere, your baseline is so high that you can't work on coping skills, we don't have any choice sometimes but go to a medication just to bring you down so you can try a coping skill, if that makes sense.
No, right?
And
Yeah,
that's, I find
absolutely.
that too, to where, like you said, with my threshold of anger is up here. It's like having to explain to my significant other, like she wants a response right away, and I can't give that response right away because that response is going to be almost primal. It's going to be rage filled. I'm not going to know what I'm saying. I got to take that time to take that threshold down a few levels, and then
And we have to have at least 3 things to do to try to bring that down before we engage. Take a shower, take a nap, get some exercise, do physical activity. Burns off that adrenaline flush more effectively than other things.
and the low self-esteem and stuff. I was using, I think, that time where my self-esteem was low and everything like that, that's when I was hooking up with all these people and like trying to find that love elsewhere.
By people, Drew, he means strippers, just so we're clear. Were you involved in the stripper phase?
Involved in what way, sir?
No. Whoa.
Are you
Everybody-
recommending
Hey,
strippers?
I did not go
everybody
to a
just
strip
calm
joint with
the
him.
fuck down, okay? No. I'm not a. I mean, do you think?
I knew about it.
I wasn't
I felt like
insinuating
he-
that you were
I
like an
was
exotic dancer.
I was joking.
Oh,
I said, I did not go.
maybe-
I said I didn't go to a strip joint with him.
Oh, okay, no, but were you? Jeez, I felt
He was
so
like,
bad.
I
She
have an
was
idea.
informed. I never really held.
He was
anything
truthful
back.
with me. I feel like that you trusted me fairly good.
He was
pretty
sleeping with a
quickly.
lot of exotic dancers.
He was making some poor choices.
You were aware of that.
Yeah.
Now, let's say he falls in love with said exotic dancer. Is that still a poor choice?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
That's
You
a
say
poor-
why? You say why?
Well, like in that aspect, you know, like at that time I was a very protective, clingy person. You know what I mean? So then, like, you got to deal with your significant other dancing on people, or you know, getting in that aspect. And
Yeah,
like,
you are clingy, Doug. For sure. Hold on a second, real quick.
God bless you.
No, okay. So then, what say you to that? Is it bad to fall in love with it? Let's just exotic dancer, stripper, whatever, lady of the evening. Is it bad to fall in love with this lady? In
No,
Tom's
and
situation?
no, I'm not going to say that, and that's definitely not the point that I was ever trying to make with you. The problem is trying to get your self-esteem from another person. They don't have it, and they cannot give it to you. And that was what I was trying to work with.
Oh,
him
you're
on.
saying she's not giving him like the validation?
No, she can't give him his confidence because she doesn't have it to give to him.
Oh, because she's also
No, because you got to have your own.
You have to
confidence.
get
And, like he's looking for it in
another person,
in
which is
these
what most
strippers,
humans do at
and
some point.
they're not they don't have like a wealth of self-esteem
You're
to
not.
supply with him.
I also, if you are an exotic dancer and you're listening or watching this show, Drew doesn't mean anything he's saying. So
No,
The thing
I'm
about it
joking.
is,
I
though,
fuck with strippers. They're cool.
Me too.
Good way to make money.
Yeah,
it's
I
just
love
they don't
it.
have the self-confidence to give
And
to
the
Thomas.
talent, dude. The talent, their core strength that they have, dude. They
Should
are
be an Olympic sport.
they are athletes, dude. I fuck.
I've
with-
had several strippers as clients over the years,
really
and I've never met one that was not terribly depressed and sad.
that checks out, but also their athleticism
Yeah,
pretty top notch.
that's not my area.
Oh, okay. Well, that's my area.
That's another podcast, I think.
I'm just teasing.
No, but do you think you could see? Well, clearly you could see progression through the years of therapy.
Absolutely.
Do you think there was ever like a point where you like saw that breaking point and you're like, oh, Thomas is finally going uphill?
yeah, when do you call it quits? When do you say like this dude's
I don't
good?
think she ever called it quits. I just
Not call it quits, but like when do you say like this guy's healthy enough to be on his own now?
Well, definitely have that conversation. I don't like to just cut it off quickly with anybody. Sometimes folks get scared because they can get too dependent on you as well.
Okay.
So I usually start out weekly, and then we see improvements happen, and then we go to bi-weekly. And then when they feel like they handle that okay, then we go to monthly. We're easing them out the door, kind of like parenting, if that
Kinda
makes sense.
Weaning off of opium or something. Yeah.
Mhm.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I did not end our relationship. That was his decision.
What a dick. Of course it was you.
Dude, I do so much, and that's like probably a downside to being bipolar.
Part of
you
the problem, I think, was the hours that you were keeping were not fitting into what I was, what I was still working for an agency at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and so my hours were made for me. I couldn't say, "Well, I'll see you at 7 if that works in your schedule," because they wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
I do. I'm my own person now. I'm completely private practice.
You make
Oh,
your
you're
own
a-
schedule.
Oh,
Yes,
really?
absolutely.
So you can fabricate.
I'm the boss. I'm the owner. If somebody needs to be seen on this other time that maybe I don't usually see clients, if I think it's in their best interest, I will do it.
Makes
If
you
they're
more
committed,
malleable. Yeah.
absolutely. If they're committed to therapy, as long as someone's working, I'm going to still be working.
Wow, that is so fucking dope.
Oh,
I
it's
didn't
amazing.
know you were in your own practice.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, we didn't even. So
Blue
you're going to
Sky-
have to come back a second time.
Blue
'cause-
Skies Mindfulness and Wellness. That's the name of my company.
Oh my God, that's so. Can you say that again? It was Blue
Blue
Skies.
Skies Mindfulness and Wellness.
Mindfulness.
My
and
son
Wellness.
actually named my business for me.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Do you have a website or anything?
I do not have a website at this
right.
time.
I
I will tell you, though, I have a profile on Psychology Today.
Oh, there we go.
Yep, and you can find me on Psychology Today. I like Psychology Today because it gives people on there like me the opportunity to provide a bio, like what, when we were talking earlier about modalities, the primary modalities I use are cognitive behavioral therapy. I feel like people are trying to get away from that. We're never going to. That's the basis of therapy, and it's not going to change.
Right.
And motivational interviewing, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm trying to help you figure out what you need to do by the problems that you're bringing to the session. Solution-focused therapy, people don't know what to do about stuff that's going on. So I'm trying to help you make a plan. And building on strengths, folks come in, they've been beat down by life, their families, friends, the world, whatever. I feel, they'll say, I say, what are your strengths? I don't have any. We got to find them and we got to use them so you feel better about yourself, not from other people, but from yourself.
We got to round this curve.
Yes. So these are the things that I use. I think they make sense.
So people can find you on Psychology Today.
Yes.
What are some? Okay, so first off, before we put a bow on today's episode, so for a youngster that wants to, much like you were when you were younger, and you were moved by you knew that this is what you wanted to do when you were younger. So, do you have any advice for younger cats that are in the same shoes that you were in?
Any advice for anybody wanting to get into the mental health field?
Yeah, psychology or
To get in the field or to get a therapist, what did you say?
to get into the field. Yeah.
Well, I have clients come to me that ask me that question, and I always encourage people to go for the social work degree as opposed to LCPC or marriage and family. And the reason I say that is because those it's still valuable. You still have a master's degree behind you, but it much more pigeonholes you to do this.
If you do the basics first and then you find specialties, kind of what you're saying.
Yes. And having a social work degree, when I did have burnout, enabled me, that hospital I was telling y'all I worked at right before I moved here.
Right.
That's just a regular hospital. And I was able to take a 6-month break from therapy and work on the regular hospital floor and providing services for people post-surgery, making sure that they had, if they've got a hip replaced, a knee replaced, do you have everything you need at home, all the equipment? That was what I did. I took a break from therapy and took care of people in a different way. If I was an LCPC or an LMFT, I wouldn't have been able to do that, if that makes sense.
Your nose to the grindstone all the time.
You have a lot of other places that you can work besides just therapy.
That's interesting.
Do routine, like you mentioned, I just wanted to touch on that, as a wrapping up point real fast before we put a bow on it. Routine is huge. I know, for bipolar people, but even like you said, you wake up every morning, you have your coffee and you pray and you read, and then you go about your day, and then you're done, and you change outfits, and then
you have to go to bed and get up at the same time every day. Going to bed at the same time and getting up at the same time is crucial to mental health.
I just think routine in general, you have a routine, and I think that is phenomenal for you. And then I had to build my routine. I just wanted to.
No, that's a good point.
It lowers anxiety if you have a regular routine.
Yeah, that's why religion's dope. I mean, religion is stupid, kind of, but it's dope that this is coming from someone who's raised Catholic, by the way. But it's dope in that it gives you go to the same place every Wednesday and every Sunday for the Catholics, Catholics going to mass. But you go to the same place every Wednesday, every Sunday. You do the same thing before every meal. It just kind of has some fluidity to like a regimen, if you will, through your life. Yeah, it's kind of nice to have that. That it's something that if you're having,
kind of nice to have a religion in general.
Yeah, but I'm just applying that to the regimen of having
routine.
A regular schedule in general. Is that all right, no matter what, I'm having a shit day. I watched a hobo shit right next to my mailbox today. I'm really pissed about it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm still having dinner at 6 and I'm still going to bed at 11 or whatever. You know what I mean? Having that regular. You have a lot of uncertainties in life, and knowing that the next thing coming, you know what I mean? That's a plus.
We're built to have a schedule.
Yeah.
We we function at a much higher level if we do. Not having a regular sleep schedule causes nightmares in children and adults. It also increases the likelihood of having a panic attack. And just anxiety in general. We just don't realize what the impact of not having good regular sleep has on us. I try to start there. No caffeine after 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
I don't like that rule.
It takes.
I didn't like that rule either.
It takes like 6 hours for caffeine to get out of your body.
It does.
We got to see if that's what's keeping you up. We don't know until we take it away.
Is it the caffeine, or is it you killed a guy in Bangladesh? I don't know. Let's figure this out together. It's a team effort.
I will tell you that everybody that is a murderer that I've spoken to did not really feel that bad about it, and tried to tell me that I was making far too much out of it. I've never had anybody say to me, I can't live with myself. I'm just being truthful.
I think a lot
all
of
the
people
murderers that
have
I've
killed people are
had,
that way.
they're like, I'm not here to talk about killing other people. That's not my problem.
Lori, why are you making a big deal out of this?
That's
I fucking
exactly.
choked a dude out behind a dumpster, dude. Whatever. I just
Whatever.
Yeah, dude. It's just a Wednesday.
People kill people. I had someone say that to me. Sometimes people kill people. It doesn't mean you're going to be crazy all your life.
Well, it's true though. Like, we're animalistic by nature, so like chimps kill chimps all the time just for dominant reasons. It happens. I get it, but like, that's what separates us from the chimps, is that we can.
Well, we live in a civilized society now.
We try to.
Yeah. But that's where it derives.
So, Lori, was there ever a moment in this mental health journey where you wanted to throw in the towel and quit therapy? And you don't have to talk about the moment itself if you don't want to, but what we care more about, like, what pulled you through that moment? What kept fuel on your fire? What kept you going?
Taking that break and being a discharge planner. That's when I had my biggest burnout period. And it was after working 3.5 years in community mental health with no control over my life, being forced to see people that I was terrified of, being put in really unsafe situations every day with almost no pay. No, they didn't provide insurance. I mean, it was just so exhausting. It's hard to describe it. That situation caused burnout. It doesn't because I don't love therapy. It was just the situation. So taking that 6-month break, and then by the time that 6 months was drawing to a close, I thought, I have to do therapy. It's the only thing I'm good at. It's the only thing that's why I'm on this earth. I have to do it.
It was like a calling of yours.
It's my thing. I have to do it. So luckily there was that in that same hospital, there was that opportunity to work with the elderly people. I loved it. One of the greatest blessings of my life to work in that little bitty hospital out in the woods.
Awesome.
I love old people, man. They're dope. Seriously.
And then where can people find you again, just to wrap up on
Psychology Today?
Psychology Today,
Yep.
And that's Lori Riley.
Lori
soon to
Riley,
be-
LCSW.
Oh, yeah. Are you going to change your name?
I don't think I'm going to change my name on that because I have
Okay.
a reputation and that people know to find me by this name since I worked at Brentwood. Sometimes I'll still have people reach out to me that I saw there.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to not be able to find me. So I'm definitely not going to change it on Psychology
good.
Today.
So if
I
the
think that would be too
listener
confusing.
wanted to look you up and book something, that would be the best route to get in touch with
There's
you.
a phone number on there. They can call me and it's a one-man show. So I'll call you back as soon as I get a break.
Lori Riley, that's LORIRILEY.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so they'll reach out to you on there and get her contact information from Psychology Today. And then, last minute shout outs or anybody you want to make sure you say thank you to or whatever, and then we'll tie the show up on that. Do you have anybody you want to mention or anything today?
Well, Pete, my soon-to-be husband,
Yeah.
I'm very thankful to him for his understanding of me doing this for a living and how it takes from me, and that he helps fill my gas tanks back up and make it more pleasurable for me and easier to do. And also my son, who was so supportive when I was going to college and never complained about me being away or thinking I wasn't putting him first.
And still helping with picking the name.
Yep, and he chose this name for me. But he was so proud of me. He showed up and watched me walk. And
That's awesome.
when I was graduating, I said, I don't think I want to walk. He's like, no, you're walking. I'm going to be there. I'm going to watch you walk.
Oh, yeah.
So he definitely was always my cheerleader, even though he was a teenager.
Oh, yeah, man. And then congratulations on getting hitched in
Thanks.
8 weeks, man. I heard there's a kilt involved, so I'm super pumped about that.
Two kilts.
Two kilts. Hopefully
My son's also going to wear one. He's going to
Damn.
give me away. He's going to play the bagpipes for us.
Sick,
That's
dude.
awesome.
Yep.
I hope we see pictures, and also I hope I see you back in a few months. We'll have to
I'm
get you
down
back in the
for it.
rotation. I want to see these buzz eggs or buzzies that we talked about.
Yep.
But no, you could have done anything for the last 2 hours, so I thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule, being
Thank
a
you.
business owner, coming in and talking to us. It's been great, man. Honestly,
Fun.
I know more about Tom now than I honestly ever needed to. So this has been another thrilling episode.
Thomas is one of
Days.
my favorite clients ever.
Thank you.
He's okay. This has been a thrilling episode of the Days Grimm. My name is Brian Michael Day.
My name is Thomas Grimm.
Drew produced it, and this has been Lori Riley. Thank you so much, Lori.
Thanks, guys.
Riley, Daddy.